Well, hello there. It is great to see you again, and welcome back to the Plum Point Wealth Management video and podcast series. I'm your host and moderator, Ryan Ruff, and as always, we'll have the star of our show and Mr. Brian Dunckley of Plum Point joining us. We're going to be unpacking another challenge that's facing so many individuals, families, business owners out there in today's climate. And today's conversation is really a follow up on one that Brian and I had taken a deep dive into on our last time together. We were addressing this idea of are you really able and ready to take care of your loved ones forever? Asking the question, how do I take care of my loved ones forever? Well, it really started with having that plan in place first and foremost. Well, today Brian and I are going to follow up on that conversation and address another big challenge, kind of a follow up challenge, if you will, to that initial question that people are asking themselves on if and how they can take care of their loved ones forever. So that being said, let's go ahead and bring Brian aboard and get right into it. Brian, it's good to see you this morning. How you doing, sir?
Hey Ryan, I'm well. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Can't complain. Always look forward to being back with you, Brian. And we're gonna be piggybacking kind of on a conversation we had in our last, time together here on the show. That idea of, how can I take care of my loved ones forever? We had discussed on the show, it really starts with having that right, thorough plan in place. But Brian, what's that next challenge that really tends to pop up for so many people? I know you're having this conversation a lot with clients, but what's that next layer of the challenge here?
Thanks, Ryan. We are having this conversation a lot, especially now. So most people have many clients who come to us. They have a really good plan. They've got their advisors on board, or sometimes they don't have a great plan. But for those who do, and the plan was set up to accomplish whatever it was that was important to them at the time. The next question is that plan still doing what you need it to do? And if you haven't revisited that plan in a period of time, I think it's really important to do exactly that, especially now there's so much change underway across the board, everywhere. So the biggest question for folks that come to us who have good planning in place is, when's the last time you looked at it? Yeah, when's the last time it was reviewed? If it's been a while, we need to take a look at it.
Sure, sure. And so many people, they had that plan in place. They thought that they were set, right, to take care of their family forever, and they thought, well, they felt that sense of security. But hey, like you said, things change. Obviously, you need to address those. So let's dive a little deeper into this, shall we? This idea of the why is, I think, so important to tackle. Brian, why would you say this is such a problem? This idea of revisiting your plan. What is the snowball here, the ripple effect, if you will?
Sure. So what I referenced change in the opening here. The world has changed. If you look at what's happening just geopolitically, the world is very very different now than it was last year. But just from a more local perspective, tax law has changed pretty radically. There've been the CARES Act, the Secure Act. Congress is looking at Secure Act 2.0, and there are some additional policy changes that inevitably are going to come. Every time that there's a policy change, that warrants a review of the plan because that could impact whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. For most people, piggybacking on our last conversation, who want to take care of their family, and usually that means a gifting mechanism or transfer of wealth mechanism. If you aren't keeping up with tax law, the bottom line is you're not going to be able to give what you thought to your heirs, whether they be children or spouses or charitable endeavors. Tax policy changes, laws change. Also, just within your own family, your own objectives change over time as you get older, as your life becomes more complicated. Oftentimes, that complexity means that additional planning is needed, additional review and strategies are going to need to be implemented. Family complexity. Children get married, children get divorced, you get divorced, second, third marriages. These things happen. Every point, every milestone, grandchildren born, everything that is important to your life, it may not seem necessarily relevant to your financial life, oftentimes is. So if you're not evaluating these milestones and reviewing them in the context of your plan, you're likely to fall behind and you're likely to create some weaknesses and deficiencies in that plan. And for you, the end problem is, as the client, you're not going, whatever it is you want to accomplish with your wealth and your assets, you may not be able to.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a tough pill to swallow at that moment. If you arrive at that moment, you didn't update your plan as you went on, and now you're faced with this unfortunate reality. But Brian, in taking it even one step further from there, in instances where you're looking at, where somebody may have had that plan in place, they didn't update it over time, and like you said, maybe they experienced a divorce, maybe they had children, children got married, all those different variables that you mentioned from a family side, as well as a tax law perspective. Let's just say the whole gambit of issues has in fact happened. What is the ripple effect here, and what do you see that ultimately can do to somebody's life if they weren't updating their plan accordingly along the way?
So the answer is going to be different for different people,
Sure,
obviously,
sure.
because we're different from one another. And I think we've talked a lot about business owners together, and the business planning is very complex. And if you're not keeping up with the changes in your business, the not the actual business landscape and how you're driving revenue or cutting costs or making that business successful, the advanced planning with respect to the business as an asset to you is different. If you have key employees and there's a changeover, or if one particular employee becomes a key employee, just as an example, and you're getting ready to sell, or if something happens to you, there's a early death, and that planning isn't in place, key employee insurance or whatever, that can create a whole host of problems for you, for the employees, for the business, and at the end of the day, for the client, that probably means that if that planning isn't adequately in place, evolving alongside the business changes, that asset may not be doing what you want it to do for your family at some point. At a more personal level, again, we talked about second marriage or children getting married. It's unfortunately it's fairly common for when we're working with clients who there's a marriage, the children identify a spouse, and they like the spouse, and there's a lot of love there, and there's a lot of happiness with that decision in that marriage. But in the back of their mind, they often think, what if divorce rates are 50% and or sometimes higher, and they want those assets to stay within the family, and so some planning needs to be put in place for that to happen, and that can be an uncomfortable conversation. But the fact of the matter is, different points in the life of a client, these milestones come into play, and that's when you want to talk to an advisor to help facilitate these conversations, help drive the correct solution, and make sure that this plan is doing exactly what you need to do for you throughout your life.
Yeah, I mean, more or less, Brian, it's what you envision for your life could risk total collapse if you're not able to keep that plan up to date. But let's flip the script. Let's look at the glass half full mentality here, Brian. For somebody that is actively updating their plan, going through those measures when things change to actively review and refine the plan as time goes on. How is life so much better? How does that issue of hey, am I able to take care of my family forever? Hey, am I able to achieve my goals? How is all those boxes checked really? How does life look if you are actively, reviewing and refining your plan?
So I think the for most people, this comes down to peace of mind. When you're taking those proactive steps, working alongside your team of advisors who are keeping up with your life as it evolves and the changes that come into play that could impact your plan, and and identifying the smart and precise strategies that fit your own set of needs and expectations, concerns, risks. uh, the end result is this plan not only does it accomplish exactly what you need it to accomplish today, but it evolves alongside you. And so as your life increases in complexity, your financial life, the financial plan is going to lockstep be more complex. And that peace of mind, it can't be underestimated. If you know that you have those steps in place, that whatever it is you want to accomplish, making sure your family's taken care of forever, making sure your employees have a continued employment and the business itself is operating, and then also delivering value back to your family, making sure that any number of risks that we may or may not be aware of are accounted for and that we're managing that appropriately. All of that, the bottom line is it's peace of mind for most people.
No, and boy, is that a sought after thing and great to have. Brian, I think it's important for us to pivot the conversation for a hot second for those out there that, maybe they're not as familiar with you and Plum Point or even just this show in general. I think it's worthwhile in sharing with some of those audience members for a moment before we get right back on topic here. These are the types of conversations that I know that you're having with your clients at Plum Point, but could you share a little bit about yourself and what it is that you and your team really do over at Plum Point Wealth Management?
Yeah, we work with clients very closely across the bar, across all facets of wealth. We're financial planners by trade and at heart. So David Swenson is a managed the Yale endowment, and he was sort of a founding father of the endowment portfolio. And when I first got in this business, I read his book, and sort of framed this idea that to be good at, in his case, portfolio management, but financial advisory, you needed a deep understanding of human psychology, an appreciation of history, in addition, of course, to sound understanding of financial theory. But it's that those two parts, the history and psychology, that really resonated with me. Financial theory being the obvious thing you need to understand, and those are themes that I adopted, launching this career and keep close throughout. I was a scientist before I became a financial advisor, so we take a very deep analytical approach to making decisions, working alongside clients, in particular, helping them make decisions. We have to understand them well. We also have to understand what's happened in markets before us, because we can't begin to think about making projections if we don't have a sound basis of history. So our team is built really well to work alongside clients. We have a team of CFPs, certified financial planners, who do have deep dive discussions into a client across their balance sheet, across all facets of their wealth, and identify those risks, and then work with a strong network of partners and other advisors, to create and put forth and in place solutions and sophisticated strategies that identify a wide range of solution sets for client issues.
Oh no, I love that. I love the rooted in data, rooted in science. It really shows, and obviously it radiates in our conversations here on this show, Brian. And I understand, I mean, just a moment ago you had mentioned that deep methodical process that you and your team take, in addressing so many of these different issues and objectives and goals that your clients are striving to achieve. And obviously, in bringing it back to our conversation here today, this idea of revisiting your plan. Okay, you got the plan in place, but you need to be revisiting it to make sure that you are meeting those objectives and goals. Brian, I understand that there's a particular lesson, really, a piece of value that you want to leave our audience with today in terms of what it is that you and your team at Plum Point do to address this exact challenge. And that's the challenge of not revisiting your plan over time. What is it that you want to share with us today, and that piece of value that we can leave our audience with?
To develop a plan and to continually revisit it, you need a sound process in place. And this is about discovery and analysis. There are two components to that process. The discovery part of the process is how it sounds. When initial client meeting, it's complete discovery. You're identifying exactly what it is a client's all about, but you need to have a solid understanding. And that understanding has to involve, you need a mechanism where you're reaching out to clients, you're meeting with them regularly, you're constantly relearning about them and developing and deepening that understanding. You take that information and then you analyze and execute. They're two broadly important parts to serving clients very well. And we can really break that down into 5 steps. The first is that the opening of discovery is really getting a solid understanding of a client's values, of a client's objectives, of a client's concerns, of their balance sheet across the board. You want to know all assets, all liabilities, even things that might seem irrelevant from a client's perspective. We want to know because they can and they do have blind spots, and it's up to us to identify what those blind spots are. But that first step is really getting a solid grasp and understanding of a client's overall wealth and picture and concerns. The second step would be through conversations, we can get an idea, and through some tools and technology, we can get an idea of a client's behavioral tendencies. And there's a whole field of science, which I love, getting to the psychology part of why we do what we do and why we're good at what we do. Behavioral finance. So the fact is, we are hardwired to make bad financial decisions. And if we can circumvent that, if we can be made aware of what those decisions are and why they're bad, and identify those trends, because everyone, the fact of the matter is, everyone has their own unique set of trends and behavioral tendencies. Uh, by circumventing that, we can help clients make better decisions. The third step, actually, I talked a bit about this in that first step, but when you have the understanding of the values and concerns, and you get that balance sheet, you really can begin to do a deep dive into exactly how the portfolio structure, a deep dive into assets, a deep dive into liabilities. What's the debt load? If you have a business, is there debt on the business? Are there additional liabilities? What do you have in place for risk management? Whether it's your personal liabilities or the business liabilities, whatever they might be. What's your estate planning? Uh, Documents, and are they in order? Is the planning in place? What strategies are being used? That's step three, and then step four, we're looking at analytics. So we have this information, we have the understanding of clients, we have an idea of how they behave and how they make decisions. We have an idea, a deep understanding of what the financial household really looks like. Now we're stress testing this. Now we're making sure we're looking at this and saying, are these assets, are they positioned the way they need to be positioned and serving the client the best possible way? Are they the most efficient? Are they the best thinking, if you will, out there? Whether it's estate planning techniques or portfolio management techniques, whatever they might be, but that's solid scientific method analysis. And then finally, would you put all that together to put forth a plan? This is the execution stage. It's crucially the most important stage, but you have the client profile, a deep understanding of the client. You have done the analysis. You've identified the appropriate steps that may need to be put forth, the deficiencies that may be there, and how to connect those dots and create those bridges and open those doors for clients. You need to put that plan forth. And you need to execute well. And then, just as we said at the beginning of the call here, you're not done. Step five is the plan, but this is an ever evolving process. You're going constantly all the way back to the beginning to step one with rediscovery, re understanding. As a client's life changes, you have to be made aware of those changes. You need a way to communicate, be in communication with clients, so you keep that understanding up to date, and you have the appropriate follow through mechanisms in place. And you run through the cycle again and rinse and repeat. And it's the best way to make sure a client's plan is up to date consistently.
Yeah, Brian, I love this. And a quick follow up question to that, which I know probably a lot of our audience is probably asking themselves is how often would you say that you need to go back and revisit it? Would you say it's, hey, maybe this is a monthly, a yearly, or maybe it's just every time you feel that you have a significant change in your life? But I feel like it's a question that begs to be asked.
It is. So I think there's a kind of a push and pull there in
Hmm.
terms of how to address that. So the push is, if at any point there's a new milestone coming up,
Hmm.
or marriage, of children's marriage, a grandchild, whatever it might be, we need to be aware of that, and that may warrant a change to the plan in some form or fashion.
Hmm.
The poll, though, of course, so we are regularly meeting with our clients in a at a cadence that's comfortable for them. But I really think that once a year, you should be sitting down with your advisor. We do at least once a year with our clients, and you should be having this deeper conversation. And from there, planning flows and evolves, and so you don't run the risk of falling behind in that case.
No, I love that. I appreciate you kind of clarifying that for us. And Brian, for our audience out there, they hear this that deep discovery and analysis process. I mean, you walked us through the five steps. The idea of okay, once you do the five steps, you've also got to rinse and repeat them. That's how this whole thing works. Uh, but for somebody out there in our audience that's thinking to themselves, man. I love this, or this is what I need to do. Maybe I had my plan in place. I need to go through this discovery and analysis process and revisit that and get things back up to date. How would you say, somebody out there can just start utilizing this lesson that you've given us today? Maybe really just take that first step forward to, in fact, get their plan back up to track.
Yeah. So for most people, we've talked about this before, but human behavior being what human behavior is, we procrastinate, we put things off, and this really is one of those things with how quickly the environment changes around us. This is one of those things that should be addressed urgently, and regularly. So, as always, people have a choice. If you've already revisited your plan, clearly you don't need another revisit. But if you haven't, you should meet with your team to do exactly that. And if you aren't sure if you have the right team, if you aren't sure that you have someone who can revisit the plan, give us a call. We are happy to sit down with you, happy to go through that discovery process and see what it is, your situation looks like, and what we feel you might or need, or it may be fine. We'll give a second opinion. So that's the choice everyone has. Don't do anything and run the risk of your plan falling behind, or act. And if you want to give us a call, happy to do that. Reach out to us on the website, right posted right below the link here.
All right, fantastic, Brian. And hey, before we wrap up our conversation today, it's always helpful. Could you paint a picture for us, and maybe an example of somebody out there that you've worked with that have went through that, discovery and analysis process, that had worked alongside you to really recognize the importance of keeping their plan up to date? Any sort of stories or examples that might shed some light on just why it's so important to keep revisiting your plan so that maybe you can achieve those goals, you can take care of your family forever?
It's we have these conversations all the time with
Sure.
clients, and lots of examples. So we wrapped up some planning for a client last week, who was a client, and so some changes came up for him. The He had one child since he done his estate planning a number of years ago. A number of changes were in place, but what really prompted this was a recent change. He had a second child get married. Um, since that plan, though, what we uncovered was he had a grandchild from his other children's marriage. He switched state residency. He the second marriage he isn't quite so sure about. He has some concerns about potential divorce at some point, and also he hadn't reviewed or updated his insurance strategy in quite a while. So we went through that process as we normally do, and we said we really should take a look at this, and we did exactly that. So we re-engaged with his estate planning attorney, and because of the changes to his strategy, his gifting strategy, wanting to give to a grandchild now, and making sure that he wants to both of his children are taken care of and also protected, we're able to definitively say he has a very large IRA. Definitively say we should carve out some of this and convert it into a Roth. He may or may not get the benefit of having that Roth in his lifetime. He knows that, but his children definitely will. His estate planning documents absolutely needed to be updated. That state residency needed to be acknowledged and changed. He went to from a high tax state state to zero tax state, uh, and he that was deliberate, but then you need to make sure the planning adjusted that for that fact. Uh, so in the case of and insurance as well, the insurance plan hadn't been updated in a while, and we were able to, uh, because of the way insurance policies work, when they have, particularly when there's some cash value, we were able to leverage the assets within that policy. And the net effect of these changes was his insurance policies are doing a little better than for him than what they originally were doing, and he's saving money in premium. He's happy about that. The estate transfer issue, with going to a 0% tax rate for the state estate tax means he can save some 40, 50% on value. The transfer from IRA assets to Roth IRA assets means his children save some up to 50% of value. So across the board, and this is a client we have conversations regularly, and he just happened to say, oh yeah, my son's getting married, and oh yeah, I have this policy. I've never told you about it, this insurance policy, but what do you think? Yeah, we think we need to take a look, and so the client in the end was in a much stronger position as a result
Sure.
of those conversations.
Oh, no, I love that. That's a great example, Brian. I mean, yeah, the life event as well as just other financial factors at play. That's a really good example for this conversation today. And Brian, before again we head out, for anybody out there, they're hearing that story just now, and maybe they're thinking, oh, I got a few things going on in my life like that. Maybe it is worth revisiting my plan and reaching out to you and your team at Plum Point. Again, what is the best way they can get in touch with you and your team to, like I said, just kind of open up a dialogue?
We're delighted to talk to you, to anyone, and just go to our website, schedule a call. You can give us a call directly, send us an email.
All right, fantastic. Well, Brian, look, I really appreciate you carving some time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy; you got a lot of clients to serve, so I'll let you get back to doing that. But appreciate you diving into this topic of revisiting your plan. You may have one in place, but boy, isn't important to go back to it and really modify, recycle, refine, reuse all the R words to make sure your plan is optimized moving forward. But I appreciate you being with us today, and looking forward to being back with you on the next one.
Thank you, Ryan.
All righty. And hey, look, we want to take one final moment, as always, and thank you, our audience, for jumping aboard and being with us on the show today. If you took anything away from today's conversation, you benefited from it in any way, shape, or form, go ahead and subscribe to the show on whichever platform you checked us out on today. That way you never miss out on a future conversation where Brian and I dive deep into another wealth management challenge that so many, individuals, families, business owners alike are all facing out there. I've said it once before, I'll continue to say it. We're really just taking the conversations, strategies, and solutions ultimately that Brian is addressing with his clients on a regular basis at Plum Point, and we're bringing them right here to you guys on this show. So for Brian, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on the Plum Point Wealth Management video and podcast series.